Okay, good. Let's see, there's supposed to be.
Report your meetings.
I'm trying to start.
Won't be as crazy as I like.
That's not the one I want.
I got yours.
Switch it now. It's not letting me do it. Okay. I'm not sure what that's about. Let's see, I have no idea if it's working or not. I'm not good at this at all. All right, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate your showing up, and please spread the word to others that we are having a District 22 community meeting every month. And one of the things that I like to do is not only listen to your concerns and things you're interested in and update you on what's happening in the district, but also bring somebody that you often don't have access to in the government. Last month, we had actually the director of codes came out to Bellevue. He's never been here before to talk about some of the issues, potholes and whatnot that residents were concerned about. This month, we have Sgt Bourque from West Precinct, which I know you've heard his name. You may have seen him out and about, but you didn't necessarily have an opportunity to ask him questions. So that's what we're going to be doing today. If any of you know the folks that showed up yesterday for the cleanup at the homeless camp close to the Walmart and Moe's, thank them immensely. A lot of work was done. I don't know how many bags we ended up picking up. Do you have any idea?
I'm sure Parks does. It was a lot.
Yeah, I know. I know we filled up more than one dumpster. Yeah. Definitely. And pardon?
Did the homeless help pick up?
Some of them were, yes. Yeah, we often when we go out, they participate as well. It's not just things being done for them. One of the things, and I'll just kind of divert from the schedule for a moment to address that. I have learned a lot over the last several months that I was not aware of before in regards to the homeless camps and just that whole scene, which I knew a little bit about. Now I know a little bit more about. Certainly I'm not the expert, but one of the things that was a misconception that I had the misconception that many of us do, that people that are in the homeless camps, that has been a choice. There is a small percentage that may be true, but the majority have some reason. They've left an abusive situation. They have had severe health situations that they lost their job and they lost their home, or there's mental illness, or, you know, and then certainly some of them also have addictions as well. One of the things I went to on Wednesday, I think it was, I went to the park that's off of Hermitage Avenue, close to Rolling Mill. And one of the things that I found out when I was there is there was a fellow that had been homeless for over 20 years. Now, I would have thought if you've been homeless that long, there's no change. But actually, he had just been housed, and he was very happy that he now had his own place with the door that he could lock and his life that he could control. That was beyond what I would have expected at that. And I hear stories of that nature often, of, you know, people who, for whatever reason, are in the camps. And that's one of the reasons it's so complicated, is there's not a one size fits all, because people need different wraparound services to successfully not be in the camps anymore. And that's become a huge topic here in Nashville, in the United States, in the world. You know, we are not unique at all in the homeless situation. This is, we've just had one volunteer just walked in the door. Thank you very much for doing part of the cleanup yesterday.
Thank you for coming to something that's not in your district. I admire you.
Thank you. Well, we're all impacted, whether it's next door to us or next door to a friend, or it's where we shop, streets that we drive down. You know, I got a lot of calls from people who were driving down Charlotte Avenue when they saw all the buggies and whatnot parked next to the Waffle House on Charlotte Avenue. That's not my district, but my people are being impacted too. And I would be turning a blind eye if I didn't look at those things as well as what's specifically in my district, because it's impacting your life and it's using your tax dollars too. So I feel like it's my fiduciary responsibility. And one of the things that will be brought up again at the meeting Tuesday is the capital spending plan, which actually allocates $850,000 to that Brook Mead camp. A lot of repairs of bridges, a lot of different work that needs to be done. It's not a fix the problem, no, but it is a step. And one of the things that I have asked the mayor's office basically 2 months after I was in office was that we needed to communicate more with the public so they know what's going on. And we're starting to see that now with some plans, bringing in experts that have addressed these situations in other cities successfully to find out what they've done that worked, what they've done that didn't work. And it's like anything, like you tell your kids, you know, don't be afraid to fall down. You get up and you go again, and you figure out what you did that worked and what you did that didn't work. I think we probably all heard the Thomas Edison story. He was asked after he'd had 1,000 failures to invent the light bulb, aren't you just going to give up? And he says, no, I know 1,000 ways that don't work. So you don't need to do that again. And so what I would urge you as we try working through things is give a little slack. You know, there are going to be things we're going to try and we're going to be all enthusiastic about, and they're going to flop. Let me just tell you up front. But what we will do is we will learn from that. You know, there were some an effort that was made in the south part of the city that looked really great on the front end. We found out there was a lot of wraparound services that weren't available 24/7 that needed to be to make it successful. So we learned from that. And even though the Brook Mead camp is not specifically in my district, it's right at the edge of it. You know, it's in 35, but it's at the edge of 22 and the edge of 23 and not too far from 20. So there are several of us that our people are impacted because you shop at the Lowe's, you shop at the Walmart, you drive down Charlotte Avenue. You'd like to be able to walk in your greenway and you can't right now safely. But I tell you, one of the things that was encouraging to me, and I know you've been following this for quite a while, is how much better the camp looked yesterday than it did 3 months ago. It was a pretty spooky place, and it's still not where you want to be, but it's moving the right direction. We are starting to house people. The United Methodist Church here in Bellevue is one of the participants in the rehousing program, and I'm really grateful for them for stepping up and doing that. What they are doing is they are providing a space, and then professionals are the ones that are actually providing the services. So we're not asking them to provide the services, but providing the space. And what that mobile rehousing program is we're taking 20 people at a time from the camps, because you can manage 20. You can't manage 100, but you can 20, you can focus in on what each one of these people need. What is their need? They may need IDs because they can't get a job without an ID. You know, it may be that they need an address because you can't even get your SSI payments or your social security checks if you don't have an address. So, you know, it may be some basic things like that. It may be that they need medication, that they need mental health services, that they need drug addiction services, and maybe all sorts of gamuts. So by taking small numbers of people at a time, you can really focus on each one of those folks and see what do they need and provide them the services. So it's not that you just put them in a room for the night. You've given them a step, if they so choose to put out forth the effort as well to move forward and not just say, okay, here's your room, go forth, have a happy life, but providing those ongoing services so that eventually, incrementally, you know, we're moving forward on that, and we're going to make some mistakes and we'll learn from those and we'll do things better. But I did want to let you know, even though it's not specifically in District 22, that is going on, because we have small little encampments around here. If you've ever been down to the park and ride, that occasionally becomes an encampment, or any piece of property that isn't occupied at that moment. You know, before the Chase Bank was built, there were mattresses laying all over that property. So, you know, it can be anywhere. Small little encampments don't get the attention that the big ones do, but the problems are the same. So what you will hear from me is occasionally I'll let you know where we're going, what's happening. I've asked the mayor's office to please update the public on a regular basis so that folks know what's going on. And I know that's something that you guys at West Precinct are very much involved with as well as providing services. So I did want to just kind of update you on that. Also wanted to update you that I'm going to be meeting very soon with the lodge that is on Old Harding Pike. They're needing to do some things for that property so that they can continue to be there. When I find out more information, I'll let you know about that. I don't have all the details yet. I know over the last couple of years, they've tried various things that just didn't work. But we're going to continue working with them. I'm not going to have any zoning meetings until the first of the year. I've asked for everything to be deferred. I think it's unfair during the holidays to expect people to show up for zoning meetings. So those are pretty intense, and you have other focuses. And I want to always make sure that everybody has an opportunity to voice their concerns and have those heard, so that if we are rezoning properties, that we're doing something that works for everybody. You know, change happens. You can't stop change, but you can make change fit your community the best that you can so that everybody wins. And so I will be on top of that. If you ever hear about something, I haven't mentioned it to you, send me an email. I've got some cards on the front table if you don't have my email. Email is really the best way, because then I have a record of exactly what your concern is. That's really even better than calling me, which I may or may not get all the information at that point. If you want to do both, that's okay too. Today we have a guest. As I said, every meeting I try to bring somebody from the government that you may or may not have met before, may or may not have had access to. And I'm going to turn the meeting over now to Sgt Bourque, who's West Precinct. He's going to answer some of our questions. Tell us a little bit about what he's doing in the community, what West Precinct is doing, and then open it up for questions at the end, okay? I'm gonna move this over, so if anybody is on our Zoom, we see you.
All right. You keep putting the O in the wrong place, though. It's just Bourque. There's no O after the R.
Oh,
People do it all the
sorry
time, though. People do it all the time. It's not a big deal. It's a Cajun name. You don't have a lot of Cajuns up here. Not true Cajuns. Especially
after Katrina. Nashville had a huge influx of people that moved up from New Orleans.
Yeah, but they're not all Cajuns. You know, a lot of them from New Orleans.
Oh, by the way, did you see these? These are.
Yeah, y'all take a nice scraper. It's that time of year. So I found 5 boxes of those at the precinct. Don't know who bought them, but I'm giving them away. So, well, you bought them. They were bought with taxpayer money, that's for sure. So they definitely need to go to you. I'm Sgt Bourque. I'm the community sergeant for West Precinct now. Started in June 1st. I've been a police officer for 30 years, 5 years in Louisiana, 25 years here. My last 5 years were in special events. So all the big special events you saw downtown, NFL draft, 4th of July, everything at Nissan Stadium, Bridgestone Arena, CMA Fest, all that stuff. That's what I did for 5 years, and I got tired. So I came to be with you for my last 2.5 years. I am not easily offended, so you can ask me anything, and yeah, I'll do my best to answer it. So don't think you're going to offend me or offend policing. If you don't like the police, that's fine too. I'm good with that. It's not a big deal. I'm going to probably be more honest with you than any police official. One, because I'm a short timer, and 2, because I'm low down on the chain. The higher up you get on the chain, the more political ramifications and the more vague you are. But I will be pretty as specific as I can be without getting myself in too much trouble. I will be with you. So I like to be honest, and I think our government needs to be more transparent. So I'm going to be as transparent as I can be. Would y'all like me to continue the conversation about the homeless camps first before I get into crime, or you want me to go into crime? So I've dealt with homeless for 30 years as a police officer, probably more so than a lot of social service people that think they've dealt with homeless, because we deal with them on a daily basis. I did most of my career spent in Central Precinct, where they have a homeless problem. And I can tell you one thing that nonprofit groups don't like to admit: substance abuse is the #1 reason people are homeless. And if there were some of those groups here, they would be jumping up and down to say I'm wrong and it's not true. It's true. The ones you see, the ones you don't see, there are a lot of homeless people that you don't see, and they're not begging on the corners. They're trying to get back on their feet. those people usually don't have the substance abuse issues. Those people lost their job, had a bad family situation, that kind of thing. The people you see, especially in the downtown area, the ones at night in the downtown area, crack cocaine. I worked downtown nights for a long time, and they were 90+% of them, they were crack addicts. They're trying to get money for crack cocaine. A lot of the ones you see during the day were alcoholics. If you go to First and Hermitage Avenue, right now, Korean Veterans, Hermitage Avenue, and you'll see all the guys that get all their 40 ounces from the gas station right there, and they'll get drunk. They'll be drunk by noon, and some of them will be passed out. So substance use plays a big role, and a lot of people that hasn't been addressed, right? It's hard to keep people that are substance abusers in homes. They lose their jobs because of substance abuse. We have a big problem in Brookmead Park with heroin and meth, and that's why most of those folks are there. Walking through on Monday, one of our officers, Cantrell and Crow, are dedicated to the issue of the homeless camps and the crime associated with those in West Precinct. That's their main focus. We were walking around in there, and they saw a guy who just got housed this year. He's back in the park. They saw there's a female in there now that was housed last year. She's back in the park. Why? They have substance abuse issues that haven't been addressed. How that all happens, or how the money gets directed there, I don't know. That's not a police function. These are just the things we're seeing. And I just want to give you the information so you can get with your public officials and decide, hey, do we need a substance abuse facility in-house that houses these people until this problem gets taken care of? So when they get out, it's kind of like being in federal prison. People that are in federal prison, they go to kind of a halfway house thing first, and they get job training, they get the job placement, they take classes on how to reintegrate into society without doing the criminal activity. Is there recidivism? Of course there is. There are some guys that go, hey, I don't like the slow pace of this. I like my high-paced lifestyle that led to me getting in jail, and they go right back in it. But for some people, it is successful. Are there programs out there that would be successful for these people? I don't know, because you know why? For the last 20, 30 years, cities have done the same thing they've done for 20 or 30 years, which is try to get them a place to stay and not address the other issues that are causing them to be there.
Yeah, that's why the wraparound services are so necessary, because we can feel all proud that we put so many people in homes, but if they don't stay that way, we really haven't solved the problem. So that's why the wraparound services that we've been really pushing for, and why this smaller program taking 20 at a time, we're thinking that we can do what's needed so we can really focus on those people. Go ahead.
So that's fine. A lot of that has contributed to what we have today, right? Because the issues haven't been solved. Homelessness was a symptom of the substance abuse or the mental illness. It wasn't the disease, right? So we didn't address the disease. We just addressed one of the symptoms, and the symptom came back because we didn't address the disease. That's kind of my take on it. And that's what we're seeing on the street as officers, and we see them on a daily basis. So what are we doing right now as the police department? We're trying to keep the camps from spreading out. So we are addressing all these little pop-up camps. Are there room in the shelters? Tons of room in the shelters. Camps for Human Development, the rescue mission, there is room for these folks. A lot of these folks don't want to go there. They don't let you use heroin and meth in the shelter. They don't allow couples in the shelter, and a lot of these people are coupled up. I don't know what the answer to that is. They don't let them take it. Well, a lot of their stuff is hoarding. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if drugs make you a hoarder, but if you go into the encampment, the things that are valued in there, it's trash. It's junk. There is trash on top of trash. There was a camp on White Bridge Road that developed. We got a trespass waiver it was private property. We got a trespass waiver from the owner, went and warned the people that had to leave. They amassed a huge amount of junk and trash in a very short time. I would say in 3 weeks. And it's going to cost that private property owner probably $4,000 or $5,000 to remove it all from the property. It's that much stuff. And you're going to hire a guy with a bobcat. You're going to have commercial dumpster. You might need a permit for a road closure for the lane to try to get it all out. So it can be a very costly thing for private property owners if they develop and then they get big. On the state side of things, I'm in direct contact with the state maintenance director for this region. When things are on state property, it's a lot easier. They're a little slow for my taste, and I'll tell you why. But they are very helpful. State has a law that says you can't camp on state property except in designated areas. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the easy version of it right there. So you can't camp in those areas. So when we find one or somebody notifies me, I'll send the director an email saying, hey, there's one over here. And he'll go out there, and it has to be a state official in control of the property that warns them that they have to leave. They have 24 hours to leave. The state gives them more than 24 hours to leave because they get pushback from the nonprofits and social services that they didn't give them time to house them. So now they give them time to house them. The problem with giving time to housing is they amass more stuff. And then often other people move in during that time. So it creates a bigger problem sometimes than it's worth if we would just take that one person and remove them immediately. But that's their policy. So we got to work within it. Once they decide that, hey, all right, this is the date, they go out there, and usually a week before, we'll give them a whole week. Hey, date's coming, date's coming, date's coming. How many people do you think move out prior to the date? Usually about 10 to 15%. That's it. The rest of them will stay to that very date, and then they'll say, you didn't give me enough time. And it's like, well, you had, 3-4 weeks that they know it's coming, but they don't want to go anywhere. So, and a lot of them, for their other place where they're going to go, it's going to be a place that there's not legal for them to be as well. So we've discussed this many times. It's always gotten shut down by social services and I said this 20 years ago, because I was at more like 15 years ago, Central Precinct. I said, hey, you need to have a legal camping area, a free legal camping area, where you can say you can't camp in these areas, but you can camp in this one. That way you can control where they camp. I don't know if our government officials are going to go for that. There's always been a pushback saying we don't want to sanction encampment. And what I tell social services, what I've told social services is you have numerous sanctioned encampments, because everywhere you allow someone to stay on government property, especially in the parks that close at 11, is a sanctioned encampment. Whether you call it a sanctioned encampment or not doesn't matter, and for police, we know a lot more legal stuff than your regular departments do, because we get sued all the time. So we know how it works. Your practice is your policy. Doesn't matter what your policy says. If your law and your policy says that park closes at 11, it's not an encampment, but your practice is that you allow people to camp there. Guess what? Your practice is your policy. If it goes to court, you have a sanctioned encampment. So, and I'm not an attorney, but that's what we found when we get sued and we go to court and the police department's been doing something a certain way and our policy said something different. And the lawyers get in court, they say, yeah, your policy says that, but you haven't done that for 10 years. So your practice is your policy. So we have lots of sanctioned encampments, whether we like them or not. It would be better if we had 2 or 3, maybe, depending on what the community wants and our government officials want. And that way we control it. And we can take all these wraparound services, instead of them visiting 100 places, they're visiting 2 or 3 places. Wouldn't that be a lot easier? Wouldn't you get a lot more participation? But with that, you would have to have a law that, kind of like the state law, that says you can't camp anywhere except in designated camping areas, right? Because without that law, how do you force the ones that don't want to go to those locations and want to stay in places they're not supposed to be? You would have to have a law to back you up, right? I was asked by someone, would you lock them up if they if they stayed on those places they wasn't supposed to be? Yeah, we'd have to, right? It's kind of like trespassing on private property. If you're the property owner and you say, I don't want this guy on my property, he needs to leave. And he says, I'm not going anywhere. What do the police do? We arrest him, trespassing. Property owner wants him gone. He doesn't want to go. Where do we see that the most? We see it in downtown bars all the time. I was amazed by a school teacher one time. She's a school teacher, been a school teacher for over 20 years. I'm not leaving. I'm like, yeah, you're leaving. So I was like, why won't you just go? But alcohol, tends to give you a skewed view of how things should work at that particular time. And you make bad judgments when you're on alcohol and any other substances. And that's why we have what we have. So Officer Cantrell and Crow respond to emails, and they also actively patrol all the areas where we're seeing encampments, especially the pop-up encampments. I'll send them to immediately. Hey, find out who the property owner is, find out what's going on. So all those people are offered services from their, our guys have all the contact information for the Metro Social Services, for the nonprofits that help, for the shelters, all that good stuff. They're offered a ride if they need it to one of the shelters if they want to go. And then we just go from there. And we try to keep it down. We can't make the private property owners clean the property. Someone asked me, hey, can you get codes on them? And I'm like, they are a victim of these people putting all this trash here. Now you want me to call codes, have them fined by codes, and have them spend thousands of dollars to clean it up.
But that happens over and over and over.
Yeah.
And so let me interject one thing. So even if you don't care about the homeless, I mean, you're like, not my problem. You're paying for it. You know, you're paying more money at Lowe's. You're paying more money at Walmart. You're paying more for everything, and your tax dollars are going towards this. So, wouldn't it be better if we found some things that were effective? So I say I tell people, even if it's not in your heart, it's in your pocketbook. So we all need to look at these situations. Go ahead.
Yeah. Another thing is there are 2 judges that have told me they have these programs for addicts. When they get locked up, they're supposed to go to these treatment things. I don't know if they just don't work or they don't lock them up long enough. You know, some of these things are 30 days. Some of these things are halfway houses. It's going to have to be a lockdown facility for 6 months to a year. So we get these people that are they're drug addicts. They continue to commit crimes over and over again. We see them over and over again. They just get out, get out, get out. They're not doing any time. Some of them are for felonies. They're supposed to be these drug courts that are supposed to be getting them drug rehab, but whatever they've got going, it's not working because we're seeing the same drug addicts over and over again, committing the same crimes over and over again. So also mental health situation. Say they're not a substance abuser. They're just declared that they have a mental health issue that makes them non-culpable for their activities. And the people that get to decide that are psychologists. My question is, if this guy is not culpable and he allegedly doesn't know what he's doing, how come every time he gets out, he knows he can get money by burglarizing cars and houses? He seems to have something going on, right? He knows it's wrong. And some of them just fake it. They just get in there with a psychologist. They know the right words to say. And they get declared that I'm mentally ill, so you can't hold me accountable. So they just keep turning them back out. We used to have lockdown facilities for mentally ill people, you know? Right? You committed a crime or many crimes, especially violent crimes, you get locked up in a mental health facility. And yes, you can't leave, and that's part of your sentence. You're sentenced to 3 years in a mental health facility, lockdown mental health facility. You can't get out. That's part of your punishment. I don't think we do that anymore. It might be something that we need to do again. I wasn't around when they closed all the mental hospitals and whatnot in the 70s. Well, I guess I was, but I was a baby, so I don't know how it all worked or what the politics were behind it. So, but apparently we don't have those facilities to put people in. Realistic view at mental health on our end, and we see it all the time. And, you know, we're the ones that deal with it. And then when we wind up shooting somebody or killing somebody in a fight that's mentally ill, they say, the police are mean, the police are bad. But I can guarantee you, wherever you see that going on, they've dealt with that person numerous times and they won't keep them. We have one gentleman that it's required that 3 officers go to the call when there's a call on this gentleman, because he is a very large guy and he fights the police every time. So what happens when that guy has a heart attack or dies, or we tase him and he dies, or we have to shoot him, whatever, they're going to say the police didn't do what they were supposed to do, right? But the fact is, this guy gets locked up, he gets mentally evaluated, they get him back on his medication. Because when he's bad is when he's off his medication. You get him back on the medication, he's good to go. They kick him back out the door. A few months later, he's off the medication again. Why? Because he has mental health problems and he doesn't always take his medication. And we're dealing with him again. So it might be better for him to be in some type of lockdown facility for longer periods of time than just, hey, he's not a danger. He's not going to kill. We don't think he's going to kill himself or somebody else, even though he might do these other things that are not safe for other people, or like some of the homeless people, you know, okay, they're not going to kill themselves or anybody else, but they can't take care of themselves because they're going to live in the woods and rely on somebody to bring them food and water and showers and all this good stuff because they can't care for themselves. Those people don't stay locked up. They put them back on the street because they're not going to kill somebody or themselves. That might be something you want to look at with your lawmakers of, hey, that really doesn't work, right? Because those people are still on the street. They still can't take care of themselves. Because we know some there are some people that have mental illnesses, but still can function, right? There's lots of people that have jobs, they have mental illness, they take medication, or maybe they don't need it. They just get counseling and they function all the time. But we have some people on the street that are, lack of better terms, I call them signpost stalkers. You see those people, they will talk to the air, they will talk to a signpost. Something's not right there. They're not going to be able to care for themselves, right? But our answer, our only thing right now is those people get put back on the street and they cannot care for themselves. So that's something that needs to be looked at too. There's a segment of the homeless population, I don't know what it is. It's lower than the substance abuse portion, but those people are not going to be able to take care of themselves. They're not going to get off the street. You're not going to be able to keep them in housing. The biggest example I can give, if anybody's familiar with Cherokee, in Rivergate, they did news stories on her years ago. This is probably 20 years ago. And her family had lots of money. They would get her apartments, couldn't keep her in it because she was mentally ill. She just wouldn't stay there. So we've had numerous examples like that. So I don't want to spend all the time on homeless camps. That's kind of what we're seeing out there. Do you guys have any questions for me about that topic? Yes.
When they go through mental health support, and when they go through drug court, when they come out of that program, is there a parole officer? Criminal, you know?
I don't know. I would say it would depend on what their crime is. If it's a felony, then you would have a parole officer. If there's more sentence that hasn't been satisfied. Now, if the going through the drug court process satisfies the sentence, then no, they're not going to have to report to anyone. Same with probation. On the misdemeanor side, you're going to have probation, and it depends on if it's satisfied the sentence or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Mental health board, I know that's a lot. When they come off their medication, nobody knows. You know, read already. So
right.
They don't have to report in unless they have felony. I can't answer the question about if they don't, is there a person assigned in? I think how do they report back? They go on the bus, do they walk?
I think it would be good if we had the judges at a community
I was
meeting
just thinking,
that run those programs.
that they're all running, many of them are running for office next year. So I don't know what their availability is going to be. I already have a speaker lined up for January, but I will see what I can do about getting some of the judges that are in the mental health court, and there's a homeless court. I know there are at least those two, and see if I can't get them for February. And if you would do me a favor and email me that I just promised that, I would really appreciate it.
You're like me, you can't remember what you promised.
I just want to make sure that I don't let it slip. And so if you help me, I won't let it slip.
All of the judges are running the judgeship this year.
Okay, so
Lindy T's out there, we have the advertisements and everything. I don't see them digging up the drug court or homeless or any of those others differently. The judge, whoever either retains that spot or has somebody take that seat from the different divisions and general sessions, I see the successor for each one of the incumbents is that role.
and this is Joyce Shapley.
Catholic.
Shapley, I'm sorry.
Catholic is Saturday morning.
Yeah, maybe we can get together. You can help me determine who we need to make sure to send that out to. Because I would like to get the judges here too. That's one of the things I'm committed to do, is to bring people to you you don't always get access to. So I will work on that. Go ahead.
All right. Any other questions about homelessness? Yes, sir.
Go ahead. I'm kind of want to go a little bit outside the camp, as we focus on that. And you know how to drive around, we talk about street corners, there's collecting, all that. I'm empty almost everywhere, and you pretty much see the same people. My question is they from camp or they're living? I mean, that's going to be, they're going to know. Can you describe how that comes out? And they got phones,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to figure out, well, how can they afford the phone? I mean, they get a bill.
You are paying for the phone.
Cigarettes, that stuff is pretty expensive. And I'm trying to figure out the accountability. How do we balance that?
That's a very interesting. That's a very good word you bring up. And there's not a lot of accountability when it comes to the homeless population and the drug abusers. that are committing crimes inside of our court systems. When they commit a crime or when they litter, if we give them a metro citation or we take them to jail, they get right back out. And there's not a lot of punishment for what they're doing, so they just keep doing it.
Same spot.
It's the same folks doing the same thing over and over again. Now the phones came during the Obama administration when he said it's a right to have a phone, or I don't know how it came about, but people called them Obama phones, and they had somebody on a corner, you know, with a little table, and he was just giving them out like candy. There was a lady famous on the internet. She had 3 of them. I got 3 of them. That's the same thing. It's through the same program that the people that pay a phone bill, a portion of your phone bill goes to pay their phone bill. So they don't pay a phone bill. So almost all of them have phones, and that's where they get the phones from. It's the free phones. Everybody gets a free bus pass. Yeah. So, so they do get a lot of freebies, and there's not a lot of accountability. So it does make it hard to get that group in line with the rest of us who obey the rules. You know, that's the thing about going to the shelters and the things about housing, why some of them are resistant to housing is I've got to follow these rules. Well, they're not very good at following rules because, especially for the substance abusers, their only thought is, how do I get my next hit of whatever it is? That's their thought process. And it doesn't matter how they get it, because meth and heroin and crack cocaine are that addictive. I've got to have this next hit, and I don't need to be bothered with these rules or these things. The people you see on the corners are a mix of people. If it's near a homeless camp, they're probably from the camp. A lot of them drive to them. They have cars and they drive, and they have houses, and they are not homeless. So the biggest, how do you keep people from giving them money? That's the thing. They're going to be there no matter what the law is, as long as they're money. Because we could lock them up on that state law, which they wrote kind of funky, and it's kind of hard to do. And you can only do it on state highways, and they got to be in a certain position. So they made it kind of difficult to enforce that law of doing that. But, you know, they're just going to kick them right back out, right? They're not going to stay there long, and they're going to go back on the corner because there's enough people giving them money to stay on that corner rather than get a job. And as long as you have those people that I think more if it makes them feel good, then they're doing good. But the problem is, especially for the substance abusers that do it, you're just buying them drugs. That's all you're doing, because they get the free food, they get the free clothes, they get the other free services. You're buying them the drugs. So when you're handing that person $1 and you feel really good about yourself, you're buying them that alcohol, you're buying them those drugs that keep them on the street. So you're not helping them get off the street. If you want to donate to the rescue mission, Campus for Human Development, Father Strobel's is what it's more commonly known as. Donate to those places that actually have programs that actually help the people get off the street, get off drugs, get job training. But how do we convince the people that feel, you know, I'm going to give them money no matter what? And as long as they do, they're going to go to that corner, whether they're homeless or not. And I would say most of them are homeless, but there's a lot of them that are not homeless.
And I think you've touched on something that's important, because you may, out of the goodness of your heart, want to be helpful, but you need to be able to be helpful in ways that are truly helpful. And you say giving cash to people is not helping. It's only satisfying your own good feelings. One of the things I've asked for that I'm trying to do is to have signs made up that basically tell you where you can call if you really want to know where the sources are to donate money, whether it's 311 or whatever. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that in a few words that you can easily read on the sign as you're going by. As the whole paragraph you'd like is just too much for people to read. But the idea is that if you want to donate, there are ways of doing it effectively. I'm all about what works, what's effective. And handing somebody $5. I will give people food. If I have extra food in my car and they say they're hungry, I'll say here. If they throw it away, well, then they throw it away. If they're really hungry, they're going to eat it. But go ahead.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
The homeless, or the guy at I-40 and Church Street downtown, used to be there years ago.
Mm-hmm.
He would make about $100 a day. It's $35,000.
There you go.
It was a good living. Now he's not there anymore, so I don't know
Yeah.
what he's done may have passed off.
And I want to make a distinction between people who are begging and people who are selling the contributor. The folks that are selling the contributor are small business people. They're buying them for $1 and selling them for $2. They're small business people. So honor the folks that are doing that. They're trying to find a way to move forward. And it's really exciting to see one of them move forward in their life. So there's a big distinction. And I want to make sure people realize people selling the contributor are not begging. They are small business people.
And
Yeah, this was the guy who just, you know.
yeah.
But sometimes people in their mind get that mix, and I want to make that distinction.
Two questions, if I might. Number one, with the activity that's taking place to clean up with me, some of those people are in places and they're showing up and going behind so got just a few that are there, but that will grow over time. Does the police department have manpower enough to nip that in the bud?
Yes, sir.
Or you almost have to wait until you have 50 people up there?
No, that's the thing we don't want to do. We want the community to notify us immediately so we don't get back to a situation where we have 30, 40 people. And now we have to come up with a more measured solution. It's a lot easier for us to move 2 or 3 people than it is to move 50 to 80, right? So if you're seeing something like that and I'm not familiar with that one, my card is back there. Please email me and let me know where it is. I will send the guys I talked about earlier, Canjel and Crow. They will go out there. They will find out who owns the property, and then we'll start the process of getting them moved off the property and offer them that. And that's where that place where that free designated camping area would be, which would not be in the neighborhoods, right? Because it doesn't need to be in the neighborhoods. Wherever that would be in the county would come in handy. Hey, you can't stay here, but we have a place you can't stay. You know, right now, all we can offer them is the mission and campus stream development. And a lot of them already know about that. They don't want to be there. So I know that's not your fault. It's not the community's fault that they don't want to go there. It is offered to them. It is a place that they can stay and they can have shelter and they can have free food and be out of the weather. But they're choosing a different lifestyle, and that's not your fault, right? And they shouldn't be in your backyard. So we're going to do what we can to keep them out of your backyard. And hopefully, eventually, we come up with a better solution than what we have now. And I think the government is finally starting to look that way and look at these other ideas and not just say, hey, we're just going to keep doing what we did for the last 20 years, which obviously did not work.
And I think that finally we're getting more attention in Nashville than we have in the past for a variety of reasons. And I will keep you informed. As soon as I hear about things, I'll make sure and blast it out to you. I have vague screams, beat on tables that we need more transparency and communication. And I think we're getting that attention now.
Seems the mayor's been non-existent through all this appropriate stuff.
There are now more rumblings in the office.
Excellent. The more the better. I like it spread out. Yeah. He was thanking me for I send an email out once a week that talks about, it's just crime updates and it's an update on Brook Meat Park and the things we're doing there. And then I talk a little bit about arrests and people that are wanted, that kind of thing. So I send that out weekly. Anybody wants to be on that can send me an email saying.
And I know you had other topics you wanted to deal. I don't want this to ignore the other topics you wanted to talk about.
I don't know how long Brook Meat's been the way it is. I only moved to Nashville in 2018. But why did they let it get the position that it is? Why didn't anybody do anything before? And aren't there schools, isn't there a vacant school fairly close there that'd be like a transition area for the people? You have classrooms that break up, you know, men, women, couples that have running water, showers, there's lockers to store their stuff.
Still in the neighborhood though, and people are.
A lot of squatters are on private property, and if you're on private property, it's up to the property owners to bring some sort of action and try to get people who are trespassing on their property, off property. That's not fair.
Yeah, not in Brook Mead. They're all in the park.
Well, there are several. City, state, or federal?
It is city. Yes. So what I did when I first got here, because I'm used to dealing with these homelessness problems and how to direct it. So we knew that we couldn't move the Brook Mead folks out at any kind of speed and time, right? So we wanted to make it where we didn't have all this spread. So we worked on the funeral home property. We got that. The stuff you saw in where the parking lot was, which is where most of the crime was taking place. Once we finished that parking lot off, the violent crime there dropped tremendously. That's where the action was happening. A lot of them moved over to the Metro Water property. We're like, nope, we cannot have it spread there. Now, when you go next to Waffle House, that Metro Water property is cleaned, it's fenced, it's posted no trespassing. The guy that was living in the center where Cabot Drive is and the exit, right? That guy, he was the one I got rid of first. It was easy because he was on state property. So we had the law backing us up to move him. The problem was, I don't know why he wasn't being moved prior to, but I put the wheels in motion, started talking to the right people to get it moved, to get it cleaned up. That guy's been offered housing probably more than anybody out there. So he doesn't want housing.
So how long do you think a week of a citizen can use Brook Mead Park?
That is a question for parks and for the mayor's office, I would say. I would not walk through it. I certainly wouldn't bring any kids there.
You can't walk through it.
And one of the things that I would say is if you would write to the council, because this appropriation bill is coming up Tuesday, to put some money, to put cameras in the park, to do different things will make it less hospitable to the folks that are living there to stay there and to protect those that are. One of the things that I found when I was at the Wharf Park is the people that were living there said they wanted the cameras. They wanted that protection because then they could leave their stuff to go get the services and get the job training. You know, when they came back, it was there. So they could transition out, but with feeling like if I step more than 20 feet away, my stuff's going to be stolen kind of idea, you're afraid to go do the things that are going to help you get out. So write to the council and say you're supportive of this bill because we've got folks out there making all kinds of hullabaloo statements about cameras and whatnot, like it's something horrible. How many of you have a Ring doorbell or something of that effect on your house, right? Okay. They want the same sort of protection too if they're living there so that they can, hopefully those who have a will to can eventually move out.
Well, I mean, I think it's more than those folks, because eventually those folks are going to be gone. They're going to clear the park at some point, and it's going to be restored. Yeah. I don't know when it's going to happen. At some point, it's going to happen. Those cameras will be very helpful for keeping just regular security. I mean, we have them in parks all over. I don't know why there's an opposition to having them in this park because there are cameras. There's cameras in Riverfront Park, Walk of Fame Park, Number One Public Square, Percy Warner. I mean, yeah. There are cameras all over our parks. One of the guys from Parks said they have about 500 cameras in parks. So why not this one? It's very strange that there's such opposition to having them in this one when there's already cameras. We put our trailer cam up there for 2 weeks and we caught an ag assault on the camera. You know, you're always, we could have caught 2 or 3 if the cameras would have been positioned right. So you're going to lose stuff that you aren't going to see with the cameras, but we did catch one and we were able to make prosecution on that based on what we saw in the video. So the cameras help with prosecution. They help with lost people. You know, the last place we saw them was here. Well, that camera shows them going in and never coming out. Okay, we know they came in, they didn't come out, but we need to look for them. Or the camera might show they came out. And now we're not wasting resources, spending all of our resources in there because we saw them come out at a certain time and now we know we need to look somewhere else. So they help with those kind of things as well. So I don't know what the huge opposition into them, because if you're in public, you're on camera. You go to Lowe's, you go to Walmart, you're on camera.
Well, and one of the things that I thought was interesting when I toured all 3 of the camps this week, and obviously I'm the camp person did it, really was disappointing. Yes. That nobody's sitting there staring at the videos all the time. It's like an incident happens, then you go back and you look at the tapes of that time and location. Nobody's like spending their whole day just studying, trying to figure out stuff.
We don't have that kind of
No, you don't
manpower, I
have
can
that
assure you.
manpower. So please just put the word out there. So I'm not the only one fighting for this. I think sometimes something gets mentioned on social media and then it suddenly takes its own life that may or may not be reality. Just like the tour of the camps took this whole social media thing that had nothing to do with what it was about. So we need to hear from calm, rational people too, and not just people that are, I don't know what they're doing, if they're just trying to make a name for themselves or what, but unfortunately that's our world today. But we need others to also voice their opinions.
And I get people that contact me all the time. They see stuff on social media, somebody takes something the wrong way, or they have the wrong opinion of something. You can contact me, I'm gonna tell you the truth. Got one that said that the mayor said we couldn't patrol a certain area. Never happened. The mayor has never told us we could not patrol a certain area. So it wasn't true. So I told them, hey, you know, you can just let your Facebook group know or whatever that that's not true. We do patrol that area. You know, here's our constraints with manpower and whatnot. We're going to try to get over there as much as we can, but the mayor has not told us that we could not patrol an area. And there's just other things that people, they just kind of, like she said, just kind of run wild with it. It's like, hey, that's not the truth. You want to know exactly, if you want to know what we're doing, I'm going to tell you. Unless it's involving a sensitive investigation, you know, I'll let you know, what our actions are, what we're doing, what our strategies are. That's not a problem. I don't mind sharing that. In fact, the chief wants us to share those types of things. The only thing we couldn't do is get into intricate detail about a certain incident or crime, just because, you know, privacy matters. But you can always do a FOIA and find out all the paperwork on it. That is available to you, but there's a process for that. I can't just give out personal information, because there are certain things that need to be redacted for different reasons within the law. But our strategies and what we're patrolling, what we're not, I will let you know. And sir, I know you were hanging on to another question, so fire away.
Well, we talked about the ongoing problem, which needs to be solved. So if somebody wanted to build affordable housing to take care of these people, not just have a camp area, but actually have some housing to address their needs, what are the top support services that you think somebody would need?
So mental health services, of course, drug rehab. See, the hardest ones to place are the ones that have the drug issues, right? Because, you know, Judy would stand up in front of the room and she'd always say, hey, get your landlords to accept these vouchers and have these people be your neighbors. Well, who wants to have a heroin addict as a neighbor? Because heroin addicts steal stuff so they can buy heroin. So now you have somebody living next to you that's going to bring unsavory characters to your neighborhood. And also they might steal stuff out of your house or your car. So that's a hard sell, right? So we got to address that drug problem, and you can't just take them anywhere. Security is an issue. So whatever place if they ever make a legal camping area, there's going to have to be security, right? The people that go there are going to have to feel safe, because then you'll get that, I don't feel safe there, I'm not going there. So that takes away from it. And there's also that element of, hey, I want to be able to get away with whoever I want, so I'm going to steal from the other people in camp. You know what I mean? So you got to have that too, because you are going to have drug addicts in whatever realm that is. That's why the drug rehab part of it is going to be so important. So security, mental health, drug addiction services, and then for the ones that need it, there's going to be some food and clothing element to it also, right? So I think those are your big things. You think anything else?
This is actually something that I screamed for. Yeah, just screamed because my day job is I work for a nonprofit that provides affordable housing. We build homes that we sell at workforce housing prices, and we have some rental properties. It's a small group. We only have 24. We're not huge. But because of that, I have some personal experience of folks who are more difficult, have more difficulties in their life. Not everyone in those situations is in that. They just may have low income, period, you know, but there are people who also have a lot of other issues. And one of the things I've said to Judith when she was part of the Homeless Impact Division, and others is you need to provide landlords more than just saying, here's a voucher. That's a portion. We need someone that knows who to call for all the services. So we make one phone call as a landlord. I'm not calling everybody's individual caseworker. I'm not trying to figure out, okay, that person got switched and they're no longer the one. As a landlord, even a nonprofit, we don't have that kind of time to do that. And certainly a for-profit's not going to have the time. We need, this is the number, this person knows who to contact so that John gets what he needs within X period of time. And that can't be an 8 to 5. That needs to be a 24/7 access for landlords. Then you're going to get more buy-in. But until you have that, you're going to have people that are concerned, and rightfully so. Because, and I would say that 85% of our folks, no issues. Absolutely no issues. But that 50% really wears you out. And so if you're trying to expand those programs, we need to make sure that we're providing all the services so that that can be done safely. And that's all.
Question. I mean, probably went into our job here, so I apologize. I thought it was the library and had seen a tour over to the community room there. I'm not sure how I mixed that up, but I did. But are there any children living in those camps?
No, ma'am. No. Usually if we rarely see homeless children on the street. Usually if they are, they're in cars and they're not in these areas with these other folks that are using drugs because their parents don't want them over there. There was one guy that wasn't homeless. He lived with a girl and we think he was a drug addict. He was babysitting the daughter during the day and would bring her to the camp. So the officers, I don't know what they did talking to mom, and we haven't been seeing him bring her over there and hanging out. Maybe because it's school's back in, but that was a bad situation. But he wasn't even homeless, so they weren't homeless. There was no reason for me there. But as far as homeless children, I think it's Safe Haven does homeless families do a really good job. If you've not visited that facility, super nice facility they have over there. And so they deal with the families, and you don't normally see that as much because they'll be in cars or they're staying with family or they're staying at Safe Haven, and they're usually not chronic where they're homeless for that 10, 20 years. You're hearing about these folks that are, moms trying to find a way for them to have a place to stay, and they get housed much quicker. Yeah. That's been my experience anyway.
And we have 30 minutes.
30 minutes. All right. We spent a lot of time on this, that's for sure. Yes, sir.
Brought up camp, I'd like to see, like to hear you could explain the actual accountability use of license plate. Tell us what the bill of account is now.
So you can please the last sentence.
License plate.
Right, yeah, and that's coming back up. The license plate reader bill has been amended and changed and worked with pretty much every single organization that has some feelings about. I will say what I have seen at this point is I feel like those privacy concerns have been addressed. Access to the information, penalties if someone were to hack in or whatever are pretty severe. If it's an employee, they lose their job. I mean, it's very controlled who has access to the information. It's only stored for a short period of time, even if it has what they call a ping, which means that license tag has been associated at the scene of some crime or whatever, is why that license tag number would come up. And all that reads are the letters and the numbers. It doesn't read short redhead girl. It reads LPR 123. I mean, that's all the license tag readers read is the license tag. They are. And so if that license tag has been associated being at some place, then you know, he gets pinged and the officers then it would show up on their readers. I saw a demonstration of it. It was pretty impressive actually. But you can probably speak to that as well.
Yeah, so there's a lot of a lot of concerns over privacy. I don't know what the motivation is for them, because we can run your tag anytime we want, right? If we get behind you, these devices are doing it for us. Most of our violent crimes are being done with stolen cars. We don't know where those cars are and where they're traveling. If we had LPRs and we were getting pings, we'd know where they are. Like the guy that was using the stolen car that did all those robberies yesterday, and it took us all day to track that guy down. He was doing it all day. If you would have passed the license plate reader, right, we'd have had that tag in there. We'd have like, this is where he is, guys. And we'd have had folks moving in on that area trying to locate him. And I tell you what, our robbery task force that we have right now, those guys find people really fast. I'm amazed at how they do it. And they're doing it without LPRs. They're doing it with whatever technology they have available, and just sheer old, hey, I think this guy's going over here. I'm going to go over there and try to find him. But as far as the LPRs, a lot of people are already been pinged by LPRs because more and more neighborhoods are getting them. So you might be getting pinged by an LPR. So if you're not in the system as a car we're looking for, it's just reading your plate. So the good thing about them is, say all these burglaries that we're getting on Charlotte Pike. If we had an LPR that was on Charlotte Pike, okay, on Charlotte Pike in these blocks between this time, right, it's when our burglaries happen. 2-hour window. We can go back and look at all the tags that went through there during that 2-hour window. It would be a lot easier for us to track down that vehicle, right? And most people during when these are happening, there's not a lot of traffic during that time, you know, and we can whittle through people, you know, the usual suspects, right? That's what people were looking at first. We're like, hey, this tag pinged, it belongs to this guy. He's known for doing these burglaries. He's the first guy we're looking at. Might not be guilty, but we're going to take a look at him, where he's been, what he's been doing, how long has he been out? Because some of them you can time it, you know, within a week of getting out, they're back in the same areas, doing the same things over and over again, and we're trying to get them locked back up. So that's where the LPR would help us get us focused and directed towards the right leads and give us an actual lead. Because a lot of times we have no lead. We have a blurry picture of a guy in a hoodie and a blurry picture of a car, and that's all we have. This would help us out a lot more if we had that technology and be able to solve it. And that's why the neighborhoods are getting it, because everybody's sleeping when those car burglaries are taking place, right? But they have their LPR that shows this car that came through as a non-resident into their area. It was the only non-resident that got hit by the LPR that night. Well, that's somebody we might need to talk to.
And that's actually what I'm in River Plantation, and in our HOA, we did purchase, we have 2 LPR readers at the entrance. And literally within 2 weeks of that, we've been having some car break-ins. And within 2 weeks, the same sort of thing. It's like, you know, when everybody's asleep, okay, what tags went through that don't live here? And they were able to find the guy and get some of the things back that had been stolen. So again, it's reading a tag, it's not reading a person. And I think it's a good thing. I mean, I have not had anybody show me anything that says that it's harmful, especially with all the restrictions that have been written in. And believe me, they've had ACLU, they've had all these organizations look at it. But it also needs to be, it's the bill that Courtney Johnson is sponsoring. That's the one that, there's another one that I call the fake bill, because it sounds good, but it doesn't do anything, because it says, like, you know, within 3 minutes it goes away. Well, what the heck? Yeah.
So we need, and I'll explain that too. We need the tag information longer than that 3 minutes or whatever, because if we're investigating a crime, so the people don't find out about the crime till the next day. And then they got to report it. They get the report. The report takes 2 or 3 days, sometimes a little bit longer, to get to a detective and get assigned. So now you're a week into this thing. If the information's not stored for, you know, enough time for the detective to even go back and look at it, then it's useless. It's useless information, because he can't go back and look and see who was in the area. So that's a problem with making it too short of a time frame on the information. Yes, sir.
I want to talk about that traffic violation. I really see it. Red light, people not come make a turn, you know, they're not coming to the point stop, and they just go right in. I think that's almost constantly. The worst scenario I would do, you know, that little street right there, Bojangles and Jim Nick.
Mm-hmm.
And you got that straight signs that you can't turn away.
Right, return only.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And several people got killed on that. I came up with one, and I was just talking about that. Can you read that sign?
No, they read the sign. They just don't care what the sign says.
Yeah. And if I had a camera, if I had in the studio, and he's going to have a hard time. I got plenty of time to turn it on. Got like that now. I see the sign. I can't turn it left. Yeah. We all have had that. Oh, can we? Maybe. And now I got to leave. I said to you, what can you do? I mean, is there something we could do and you can be proactive with it?
Yeah, it's not the way traffic violations work. It's not anything that we're going to be able to do with it. I mean, we could find out who it is. We could maybe give them a phone call, but I mean, there are thousands and thousands of traffic violations a day. We don't have a lot of traffic officers. We used to have a lot more time to do traffic violations, but our department is too small. So we have 13, 17, we have 17 motors, and we probably have about 10 traffic cars. That's the only guys that are dedicated to traffic violations. So when there's a troubled area, people send me an email, I send it to traffic. They're going to hit that spot about once a month if we're lucky, because there are so many traffic complaints. Everybody's got the same complaint everybody else has. They're speeding, they're passing on double yellow line, you know, they're running the stop sign at a certain location. We have thousands of those complaints. We've got about 30 officers addressing it. The other officers that are on just regular patrol, from about 9 a.m. till about 2 a.m. in West, they're going call to call. So they get one call, they go handle the report or whatever the problem is, then they're dispatched on another one. And then when you see them in transition, when you see them driving around, they're usually in transition. They're going from one call to the other call. So it's just that busy, and our numbers have never caught up. We've never been fully staffed that I'm aware of. And last year's riots and whatnot made it a lot harder for big city police departments to staff. So we saw in the last probably 3 or 4 years, and last year really didn't help, is officers are going to smaller police departments where they're not as scrutinized, where they're not beat up by a DA's office that's like, hey, I'm anxious. I'm wanting to lock me up an officer. I don't know how anybody's a police officer in Chicago. But you know, we faced a little bit of that here too, where officers are like, you know what, I can go be the real police in Franklin, in Hendersonville, in Murfreesboro. Their pay's not that much lower than ours. It is lower than ours. Their benefits are not as good, but officers, we've found a lot of officers are willing to take that less so they don't have to put up with all the stuff they have to put up here at Metro. It hurts our recruiting. It's harder to do. Getting fully staffed is hard. So those traffic violations kind of go by the wayside of, we got to go handle this call, got to go handle that call. So I know there's a lot of complaints about traffic violations, and we're not going to be able to handle them like a small town, like Bellevue. Their officers, they don't have a very high call volume. They got a lot of time to do traffic, and most small towns are that way. They do a lot more traffic enforcement in Hendersonville, Mount Juliet, Ashland City. Everybody knows as soon as if you're on 12, as soon as you get in Ashland City, you don't know if that guy's going to be there. Half the time he is, half the time he's not, but a lot of he's sitting right there as soon as you get in there. So what do? You slow down, right? Because you're not going to risk it. You're just going to slow down and do it. But with Metro, it's not that way. We got a lot more roads, and we got a lot more complaints, and we got a lot more traffic. So staffing definitely hurts us on the traffic enforcement.
Speaking about a lot more traffic, you got a lot more.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So, and with those more people coming in, you get more call value. Are we getting more officers next year at West Precinct? You know, you always at the rebid, you always gotta get, you know, you get that 2 or 3 more, and like, yeah, we're fully staffed, and it doesn't last long because somebody gets transferred into detective, somebody retires, somebody just quits because they want to do something else, somebody gets promoted, and you start whittle down at those numbers, and all the precincts feel that same pain. And all the precincts that have the, you know, like we got our traffic complaints here. You know, I talk to the traffic guys all the time. They're like, yeah, they got the same complaints in all other 8 precincts that they're trying to hit and help out as well. So I wish we could do more on the traffic complaints. I used to write a lot of traffic tickets back in my day, but we used to have a lot more time to do it. Yeah. And the officer to call and people ratio used to be a lot better than it is today, for certain. Yep.
And I would say that if in your neighborhood you're having certain traffic issues, we do have what we call a traffic calming project. And there are 2 times a year that opens up, and when it's ready to open up again, I'll make sure I put it in my newsletter. And what that means is if you have certain issues in your neighborhood that you'd like to see addressed, you can write a proposal and a request for that being researched. Cross Timbers was very successful 2 years ago. If you go through Cross Timbers, you will see, they're not called speed humps, they're
Speed cushions.
yeah,
Speed cushions.
that and painting and whatnot to help there because they were having a lot of issues of people using that as a cut through and speeding, and they don't have sidewalks, and so it was very dangerous for them. So if there, I will make sure and have it in my newsletter way in advance of time to present that. But if you have something going on in your neighborhood, start talking to your neighbors now to get support for a traffic calming project in your neighborhood. It is competitive. It'll be like maybe 1/10 of what gets requested actually gets funded, but that is a really good program and another thing that can be done. I'll make sure you get that information.
With those soft things on the street on Cross, that is temporary.
I mean, they can be removed.
Yeah, yeah.
They can be removed if they're a problem. But that whole process, I'll just take a couple minutes because I know we're running out of time. The whole process is very collaborative in that if your project gets approved for funding, that just starts the project. That doesn't end it. At that point, there are community meetings. And like the one that we did for Cross Timbers, we had maps of the whole neighborhood on tables, and people came in and they marked up where they saw areas that were problematic if they wanted to see something addressed and put stickers on them. And that was the starting point. And then the planners that have that expertise went back and came up with 3 different plans that they thought would address what the people there told them was a problem. They came back with those plans for another community meeting. The people there voted on what they liked and what they didn't like. And then they came back again for a final, so there was a lot of community participation. Then they had to go out and get a petition signed by 70% of the people that were on the streets where the changes were going to be made. So it was, nothing was being pushed on anybody, is what I'm trying to say. Nobody's imposing anything. It's what the neighborhood is saying they want to support, and then it happened. So that is a lengthy process that takes several months, but at the end, you come up with something that was collaborative. And as I say, well in advance of when the next time comes up, I think we've got several months, I'll make sure and get that information out in my newsletters. Yeah. And we only have 15 minutes left. So the things you really wanted to make sure these folks knew before they left.
Traffic calming and design is the way to go on traffic issues because we're never going to enforce our way out of it. It's just that thing, like that intersection you're talking about. If maybe in the middle they put a curb that kind of went to the right a little bit and kind of forced them to the right, or they got to chunk over that thing if they really want to make a left. That would really help. That I don't know why they do that. It's so much easier to swing around to the light. The light doesn't even take that long. That's what I do all the time. If I'm in Jim and Nick's, I swing back around to the light and I can turn left. I mean, people are just so impatient. But roundabouts slow people down. They work good. I'm not a big fan in the inner city where, we got that one at Korean Veterans, and I know that's a weird intersection, but man, that thing can get jammed up. But where there's not near as much traffic in the neighborhoods, they tend to work a lot better, and you got to slow down for them. So it slows down traffic. It helps with, you can't run a stop sign because it's a yield sign. So the more people get used to them, the easier to be. So those are good. The speed cushions are good because you can't go faster than 25 miles an hour over them. Those kind of things work. So yeah, it's just being able to get the funding for it, get on that list. Just keep making your requests because eventually you'll be the one that gets going, okay, it's your turn, and you get it. It's probably going to take longer than you want, no doubt. As far as the Bellevue area, let's talk a little bit about the crime in this area. A lot of the crime in this area, we get about 4 residential burglaries, which is not really bad unless it's your house, right? Because someone has violated your space. We do have an officer, Officer Teran Cox. He works for me. He does site surveys. Anybody can request a site survey. You don't have to wait till you're a victim of a crime. And he goes out with a checklist that will harden your house. Nothing's 100%, but here are some things to make your house look less attractive than other houses. So that's available. Another issue out here is mostly right here behind us. The theft people using bad credit cards, shoplifting, that kind of stuff. Most of it is right here in this little shopping area, which is not uncommon. Shopping districts usually have the most of that type of property crime. The best thing that ever happened for shoplifters and people committing those crimes, COVID mask, right? It's harder to identify them. We are starting to identify some people, even if they have the mask, based on different features that we're familiar with, tattoos, the shape of their forehead, maybe they have a scar, stuff like that, you know, lazy eye, something. So we are identifying more and more. I told some places, I'm like, you don't have to have, there's no mask mandate. They don't have to have a mask. You know, if you don't want to make them, if some people are just more comfortable with the mask and you don't want to offend your customers and you have good video when they first come in, hey, take your mask down for a second, right? And you just get that video, you get their picture on, you get their face on your video, right? Now you have their face and that's all you need, right? So if they wind up stealing something and they run out, you're like, we can go back to the thing. That's the one right there. He took his mask off for us and we got that ID, because you just need that short ID of the person, right? So that's been hurting us on a lot of the prosecutions, is that and an emboldenedness after the protest last year with the social justice movement. Some people felt they were entitled to just take whatever they want. If you keep up with the news, San Francisco had to close 10 Walgreens locations. So people just coming in and just taking an arm load. And all that came from that movement. There was a big narrative in the media that COVID was causing big crime increases. It did not. We actually saw crime go down, especially in residential areas, because people were home. So most burglars don't like committing the crime while the people are home. People are home all the time. We did see an increase in commercial burglaries because people weren't at their business. So that was a problem when the actual private businesses were locked down. We saw that increase. It was good once that lockdown was over. Those people got back to business and got back at their businesses, and they could watch them more. So that stabilized.
Address the guns and cars.
Guns and cars. A lot of people think, I think we saw an increase when we were allowed to keep guns and cars, but we couldn't carry them on our person, right? So people left their guns in their cars because they couldn't carry them in their person. They wanted to be law abiding. So what did the bad guys know? Everybody leaves their guns in their cars. Never leave a gun in your car. Well, no matter what the law is, if you can't take it where you're going with you, I'm a police officer. You know, we carry our guns almost everywhere. I was going to Canada. Well, guess what? I can't carry a gun in Canada. So guess what I did? I left it locked up in a safe place at my house, because that's the right thing to do. If you can't take it if you're going to a bar, don't bring it, because you know you can't take it in that bar. So just leave it at home, hopefully in a gun safe, if you have one. And that way you don't have to worry about it, because we've had over 1,000 guns stolen from vehicles this year. And it's just not a safe thing to do. A lot of them were either in unlocked cars or the gun was visible from underneath the seat. So they weren't putting in a good hiding location, and they're also leaving their cars unlocked. It's amazing how many people leave their cars unlocked. Some of it's by accident. Some people just think that they're in a safe location and they don't have to worry about it. Look how many people we get that their cars get stolen. Well over 50% of the cars stolen in Davidson County are stolen with the keys in them. So I don't know what that is either. I live out in the country. No one comes into your driveway out where I'm at because they're scared to do it. And I don't leave the keys in my car. I mean, I don't lock my doors. There's nothing to take out of my cars. But I certainly don't leave the keys in it so somebody can drive off in it. And I don't leave my gun in there. So
you ever tell people they're on the road to collect the keys in the car, call the insurance company, we're not looking for it.
No, we don't do that. So it is definitely an education for those folks. I'm always pushing out in emails. My email, you get my email, so you see it. I'm like, always dead set constant reminder. Don't do it. And just time and time again, we see it. Our meeting on Tuesday, I was reading a narrative from one of the car break-ins. This guy goes to the park. He took his keys. How he didn't get his car stolen, I don't know. He put them behind the back tire, and then he left the car unlocked with his wallet in it. So this guy did everything possibly he could do wrong. He did. He didn't want to run with his keys. So, and apparently he didn't want to run with his wallet. If you're going to go to a park, don't take anything that you're not going to take on your person. That's something I just put out, and I keep putting it out, And I wish more people would get that information, because there are bad guys that just watch the parks, right? Because they know that ladies leave their purses, guys leave their wallets. They're dressed in, you know, skin tight stuff that doesn't have many pockets. So they're not carrying their wallet, their purse, those kind of things. You know, if I was going to run, if I was this guy, I would just take my car key and my house key, because that doesn't jingle so much, and maybe just a credit card, my driver's license, and leave the wallet at home. Yes, sir.
I worry about the car. I worry to the point where I lock it when I go to the gas station.
Yes, sir.
Sometimes people steal cars.
Which you should all the time. Gas stations are very popular for stolen cars.
But I worry about the car overnight in the driveway.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to protect my car?
Okay. Most of our car burglaries don't involve broken windows. Most of the time it is all pulling on door handles. So what we want is no one to leave anything in their vehicles at night. So if they come up to your car and it's locked and they look in it and they don't see a laptop or a gun or a power tool, they're moving on to the next one. Because as soon as they break a window, they risk the night being over for that neighborhood, right? Now I got to bail and go to another neighborhood. So mostly what they do is pull door handles. Some people don't leave anything in their car and they leave it unlocked. That way they won't break that's what they tell me. So they won't break my window. I was like, as long as you don't mind somebody rummaging through your car, and it doesn't happen very often, you know, but you know, once a year, somebody might rummage through your car and find nothing and move on. That's fine. But if you lock it and don't leave anything visible, 99% of the time, your car's not getting broken into. They're moving on to another car. The ones we see with the broken windows is what we see in the narrative. My purse was left on the front seat. It was left on the floorboard where they can see it. It's not hidden. In the parks, often women will put it in the trunk. So they will walk from the passenger compartment of the car. They walk to the trunk. They put it in. But the bad guy's watching the park. He watches you picking it in the trunk. So he smashes your window, hits your little button, gets in your trunk, and he gets your purse. So that's why we tell people for the park part, you just want to leave everything at home. And it's not always possible, and it's hard to do. And I hate it that we have to say things like this, but you have to make yourself a hard target, because there's a lot more bad guys out there than there are police patrolling. So we definitely have to make ourselves a hard target. But if you don't leave anything visible in it and you keep your doors locked, probably nobody's even going to go in your car at night. Yeah. But the trend we see is they steal a car somewhere in the inner city, usually one that had the keys in it. They drive it to a neighborhood and 2 or 3 guys go pull door handles. One guy drives along, right? So if they need to get away real quick, boom, they all jump back in the car and go. So they're cruising through, and we saw one in one neighborhood right back here, Newsom Station area, where the guys they're in their vehicle. I don't know if it was stolen or not. They find a vehicle. It has keys. It's not to the car that they're in. It's to the car next to it. They steal that car. They drive to another street, you know, all the while they're pulling on door handles, right? And getting whatever they can. And it's small stuff. It's nothing. I don't know why they do it. If they put that much effort into a job, they'd have a lot more money. So they get to the next street. They find another car with keys in it they like better. They leave the first one they stole and they steal the next one. And they drive that one off. So when the officers are taking the reports in the morning, when everybody wakes up and goes, this happened, they found the stolen car from the first house at the other house. So we often do recover those cars. We usually don't recover.
I wonder if it was a better car. Yeah, I might not call you if it's a better car.
That's, oh, you just, hey, I got a better car this morning. All right, we're just going to keep this one. So I'm thinking it wasn't a better car because the bad guys took the next car. So they must have liked that one better, right? So things like that. We had one where there were 3 cars out front, and all of them had, one of them had the keys to all the cars in it. So they took all 3 cars. So yeah, I don't know what the deal, I've never left my keys in the car, but people are doing that kind of thing. I think they feel they're in the suburbs, right? They don't have a lot of problems. They don't have that one house. I want to write a book called That One House, because right now I'm dealing with about 5 or 6 neighborhoods. They all have that one house. The whole neighborhood's great except that one house. And that one house is trouble because that person is a drug addict, or they're letting drug addicts stay there, and they're bringing their crummy friends there, and they're just ruining the whole neighborhood. And what can we do about it? It's rough. It's a hard one to deal with. And we're dealing with 5 or 6 neighborhoods that are doing that. And I'm on the clock. What else do we have going on
Well,
And
tell them about the Tuesday meetings at West Precinct. These folks
Yeah.
may or may not know that. And
Okay.
I want to make sure that.
every second Tuesday of the month, the commander and I are at the precinct at 7 p.m. in the community room. You can fire away with any questions you have. No topics off limit. I usually do a little quick run through of the kind of crime over the last 4 weeks, and I have some maps up there that show the dots. We can talk about any crime in your neighborhood, state of policing, how police officers feel, what we eat for lunch, whatever. It's your meeting. The commander can't stay as late as I can, but I usually stay till everybody's done. So I don't mind staying. He doesn't make overtime, I do. So it's a lot easier to stay.
Isn't there a course public education or something like that?
The Citizens Police Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Citizens Police Academy, and I can find out when the next one is and kind of put that out in my email. It's really cool to go through because I think it's over several weeks, and you go once a week, and then you kind of learn a lot of the things that we learn, and you learn about why we do the things we do and how things are investigated and that kind of stuff. And you get to take tours of different places in the police department, like the crime lab and the academy. What's that? 911 communications. Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yep. So I can find out when that is and put that next one on my email so people know. Yeah, it rotates precincts. So the last one I'm aware of was at West, and that one finished up in the summer. And the next one, I want to say the next one's in Hermitage, but I'm not sure. But it rotates precincts, each one, yeah. So eventually it'll come back to West, but I don't know how long that takes.
Does the sheriff have the same thing?
The sheriff? I don't know. All they do is civil and corrections, so I don't know that they would have a similar thing.
Water department has a sheriff department. Well, they didn't.
The water department does.
Water department.
Okay, interesting. All right.
Virtual and that.
Chlorine and fluoride.
I did it last time. Very interesting.
Anything else? All right. Y'all have my contact information. If you have any questions, you can always contact me through email or phone. Don't leave a message on my phone. I'm having problems still with the voicemail, and I don't get it till a month later when it's not worth calling anybody. So shoot, if I don't answer, you can send me a text. The next time I'm back to work, I'll see the text and I'll return you. Or if you shoot me an email, I'll definitely get back with you on the email. So those are the best ways to contact me. And my only job, I said my only job, my main job is community outreach and crime prevention. So talking to you about the problems in your area and trying to come up with solutions is the main part of my job. So it's fine for you to contact me. I get people that contact me almost on a daily basis. And that's fine. That's part of my job. You're paying me for it. So don't feel like you're wearing me out if you contact me once a week or 2 or 3 times a week. It's part of the job. So you're more than welcome to do it. It's not a problem.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming out to Bellevue and kind of updating us on what's going on here, some of the things that we can do to protect ourselves. Definitely don't leave our keys in the car. We will not be having a community meeting in December. It's just too much going on to do that. We will have another community meeting in January. Our speaker will be Vivian Wilhoit. We're going to be talking about your property tax assessment for those who have not yet applied for the tax relief or the tax freeze. They'll be giving you information about that. So please do, when I send that information out, share it with your neighbors. Not everybody's on my mailing list. They can easily be on my mailing list. They either email me at Gloria.Hauser, which is HAUSSER, at Nashville.gov and say they want to be on the mailing list, and I will add them. Also, every email that I send out in my signature line, I have the link to sign up. And so if you'll forward that to others so that they can get on the mailing list, it's no matter, I'll send out newsletters, I'll post on every single Bellevue Facebook page, I'll post on Nextdoor, and then also have people say, I didn't know this was going on. So please encourage others to sign up for the newsletter. am thrilled. The bigger the group, the better, the more questions. If there's something you want to have discussed or somebody you would like me to bring out to Bellevue, because I'm trying each month to bring somebody to you that you may not have access to typically. You know, last month we had the director of codes. So each month I try to bring somebody that you may not have access to. So let me know if you have an interest in a particular department or a particular issue that you'd like to see in more depth, and I'll make sure and get it scheduled. Thank you so much. If you guys would help kind of stack the chairs up at the back, I would appreciate it. Thank you so much, and good night and farewell. All right.
Well, did they fix the
Thank you.
driveway issue over there at my Home Depot and stuff? I remember seeing some emails. Yeah. Did they get that fixed?
Part of it's been fixed. Part of it has not. The part with Cross Point Church, they have sort of put patches on it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that they found out is the address they were sending.
Don't forget to take an ice scraper.
Church is an address they weren't using anymore.
Oh.
So the people that needed to take action for it, and they actually had part coordination. We were ready to, and I called it. I said,
Good
hey guys.
in front of Goodwill and
So
Tennessee.
that's the other one. That one is Tennessee Impact.
Yeah.
That's their property. They've been sent notices. I believe they now have a court date. And that's all we can do is find this private property.
Sure.
But what I will tell you is if we go through all this.
Okay.
Because
social media.
Sunday school.
I had scanned your business. So here.
I think it was March. Was in like 60s. Not the youth director, but
That's